Yes, good morning, good afternoon, and for some of you, good evening. It's a great pleasure and honor to have my guest today, Dr. Luz Longsworth. Dr. Longsworth is the Pro Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the University of West Indies Open Campus, which is the online and flexible learning campus of the UVI. Dr. Longsworth also holds a portfolio of Pro Vice-Chancellor Global Affairs. She holds a doctorate in business administration in higher education management for the University of Bath in the United Kingdom, a Bachelor of Arts in Spanish and French, first class honorary, a Master of Business. Oops, just a second. Someone switched my screens here. Bear with me one moment. There you go. And administration degree from Universities of West Indies, Mona, etc. As an honorary fellow of the Commonwealth of Learning since 2016 and selected as a member of the Commonwealth Wise Women program, Dr. Longworth is also involved in mentoring young women across the Commonwealth. She's fluent in Spanish with a good knowledge in French and German. In balance, her life, she enjoys reading, yoga, and Tai Chi. With that, welcome, and I'm so glad to have you. I've been looking forward for at least 2-3 weeks. We were supposed to have it earlier, and now it happens today. So thank you for your time, most generous, and I look forward to the next 60 minutes together. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, so I have a few questions for you. But just to give the audience a little background, would you mind describing what your university is doing a little bit, which regions it covers, and what your role is in the university? Just as an introduction. Thank you.
Sure. Well, the University of the West Indies is an amazing institution. We are a university that covers 17 different countries across the English-speaking Caribbean. I think we cover something like 5,000 nautical miles apart. Yes, so we are a federal university and only one of 2 universities such as these exist in the world, the other being the University of the South Pacific. Mm-hmm. So the University of the West Indies started in 1948 as a college of the University of London, and then we moved on with our own charter in 1963, and we've increased from 1 campus originally in Jamaica now to 5 campuses in Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua, and my campus, the open campus that spans the rest of the region and the world, because we are primarily online, as you pointed out. Mm-hmm. The university is really quite a diverse institution, and we've always had to manage in a context of distance and the challenges of distance. So of course, this engagement with you is just another evolution in an exciting space of bringing education to people in far-flung places in our own region.
Yes, and can you describe some of the locations that are mainly where you have online students from, which places?
Everywhere, Dan, everywhere. So from all 17 countries. So here is the track. We have Bermuda in the north, and then we can go to Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana in the south, and then islands in between, Anguilla, Antigua, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, St. Vincent, Barbados, Montserrat in the east. Wow. Then we come across into the Western Caribbean, Jamaica, Cayman, the Bahamas, and even on the Central American coast, the Belize. So in all of those countries, we offer programs online for students. Even in those countries where we have a physical campus, many of our students live in remote communities and cannot access the physical campus. So they do online programs. And we have students enrolled from 20 other countries, Canada, the US, Afghanistan, Nigeria, all over the world. Primarily, of course, students who are of Caribbean descent who may be in these parts of the world. But we are truly global and growing in that regard. So it's we have almost 8,000. We have over 8,000 students doing formal degree programs, and we have another 9,000 students doing continuing and professional development programs in the region and beyond.
Exciting, really. Most common people that haven't traveled too much, but in the region, but just heard about it in the news, associate the region with hospitality, right? Hospitality services, tourism. I mean, your islands are beautiful, your beaches are fantastic. So this kind of leads me to the next question regarding what programs you offer. I assume that one of them has to do with, of course, hospitality, but I know that you offer many others. Would you mind sharing for the key type of programs you offer currently? Thank you.
Right. Well, the University of the West Indies offers pretty much everything except, I believe, aerospace. So all of our campuses cover the medicine, or the health sciences, engineering, agriculture, and beyond. The open campus, in terms of our online programming, we have focused a lot on business, management, the social sciences, psychology, political science, and so on, education. Those were the early forerunners for the online education. But we've moved very rapidly into things now that are very important to the region. And you speak of tourism, but there is an entire ecosystem that supports that. And the region is a very vulnerable region. So we've been moving very rapidly into programs in climate change and disaster risk management. Those are two of our newest areas across the university that are very important. And of course, our hospitality and tourism programs. So we do the gamut of the curriculum, but we are recognized that we are primarily at the moment a service sector. We're moving into technology, and this is of course where our relationship with EON is going to be such a game changer for our university.
Excellent. And I assume that in many ways you were already prepared for the pandemic situation because you were online, right? So you didn't have to struggle or scramble as much as many others that were caught off guard. Because you already had this type of solutions. By the way, you hear the sound. So what you need to do, it's a little bit of echo. So if you mute yourself for 1 second.
It's okay now. I'm hearing you now.
Okay. So what happens is there's the feedback that builds up if you don't have these. And okay, we are good. So my question to you is, you already were prepared. But what has the pandemic brought? What kind of change, and what was the effect on your university due to the pandemic? I'm curious.
Because our university is blended, we also had parts of our university that had to scramble to online learning. The advantage of the open campus was that within 2 to 3 weeks, we were able to train up over 1,000 people to be able to move into emergency remote teaching in the physical campuses. We had some challenges, of course, challenges especially in terms of assessment. We were still doing traditional sit-down examinations face-to-face, and we had to very quickly on a dime turn around and come up with a new way of assessing our students, ensuring of course that there was integrity of the exam, there was no cheating, even though we're doing it online. But what that has done for our professors is that it has made them look at their curriculum and their pedagogical approach in a different way. And how do you then test a student in such a way that they cannot cheat? And so it has really been an exciting time for professors and for students, because it allows them to come up with innovative ways of teaching and of testing in particular. So that was a major challenge for us. But because we had come from a dispersed environment, we were familiar with most of the challenges. In some of our countries, access to the internet was problematic. and access to adequate devices. But we were able to overcome a lot of that with the generosity of institutions and donors who were really helpful in ensuring our students had that access. But I think it's an exciting time for pedagogical reform, frankly.
Yeah, no, I am on the tech side, so I agree with you. I'm just curious, and I think the audience also, what made you take that leap into XR? Because what you're doing, just for benefit, you are revolutionizing the region by having now rolling out 5,000 students and 700 internships and workers for a period of 5 years. So you haven't dipped your toes in the water, you've jumped all the way. What was the triggering factor here that was it the technology? Was it, yeah, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts then.
Well, my campus has always been the campus that pushes the envelope. Really, Dan, we started online learning 12 years ago when many universities were averse to it, saw it as an inferior product. And so we've been in the vineyards battling to say that this is the future of education. So we were already speculating as to what was coming next in terms of how we could really enhance our curriculum and our outreach and getting our students more excited about learning in this way. As you know, we've I guess flirted a little bit with this kind of technology in the past, but a problem had been in the past. One, acceptance. User acceptance, of course, because people were still, how can you teach when the professor is not in front of you? You can't teach certain things. You can't teach engineering. You can't teach law. You need to be, you need to have warm bodies. So we had to work on that. Also, I think cost was an issue earlier in the day when the technology was still new and a little bit costly for our economies. But we were always looking at this. And I remember, meeting with your team several years ago and literally just drooling and wishing that we could jump into it from then. But this opportunity, which the pandemic brought, has really been able to allow us to leapfrog to where we wanted to be. And this is really what we see is a future of education and development, not just education of students, but development of our region, which is one of the regions that has a relatively low number of students in higher education. And that's our mission. We want to get more of our students prepared for this new world in order to develop our region and improve the livelihoods and the lives of the people of the Caribbean.
I like people that walk the talk, right? Because there's sometimes a lot of talk about we are futuristic, and what I also like is how technology can be an equalizer. I have now campuses rolling out in Harare and Rwanda and Laos. So, and I had a professor from Harvard listening to him. And I see that quite a lot, whether it's Harvard, Imperial College, that Imperial Power College is a customer. They are very hesitant to go forward, many times because they are victims of their success, right? Success builds those very strong houses and very powerful departments, and then they have those little kingdoms and anything from outside that can threaten their position. So it's interesting to see. Now, I promise you a surprise, okay? So I have a couple of surprises for you. I have little toys here. The one reason, and as you well said, that this wasn't accepted before, it was too expensive, there was not enough content, and it was too difficult to use. So one thing that EON has been really, really focused on is how do we make it easy? So I think I don't know if you saw the video of 9.0, I assume, so we made it really easy. But I have a surprise that we are now making it even easier, and we're coming up with 2 new products. One called Merged XR and one called Spatial Meetings. So in EON XR, what we've been focusing is to extract things from the real world and inject it in the virtual world, right? So create virtual reality experience, augmented reality experiences, and inject in the digital data annotation knowledge, right? Encapsulate knowledge. But what we are doing now with the merged XR, and I'll show you the product, I'll actually create one, is I take the the digital world and inject it in the physical world. So the world becomes illuminated. So you can talk with your toaster very soon, but today I'm not going to talk with a toaster. I'm going to do something else. So do you see, first of all, do you see my room here, right? And do you see my phone?
Yes.
So I'm starting to scan it. So step one, there's 3 steps only. First is scan, then second, take pictures, and then walk and talk. Anyone can do that, those 3 things. So there's no writing, no reading. So there's a very brief, I have to scan it properly, but you can see the model here of the 3D model. And once I've done that, the second step I'm doing is I'm taking pictures. So taking pictures is something that, even functional literate people it can do very easily. It's just you go and snap a photo. So for example, that little glass there, I don't know if you see it. Let me just turn it around. Yeah, you see that little, this one here? Okay, let me just. This is actually, I purchased that in Guyana.
Oh, lovely.
So they found it on a ship. So you can see this was hand blown.
Yes.
So if I want to tell the story about Guyana and the pirates and whatever was there at that time, Pirates of the Caribbean story, but not the Hollywood version, I can do that. So once I've done that, then all I have to do is walk and talk, meaning that I'm walking around now, recording a video, and I'm pointing out with my finger, and we call it the hands of God internally. We need to come up with a better name. And what you're going to see what's happening with these 3 things. Okay, so with that, I did it. And one more thing before we get started. You see that bread basket there? That one there, the golden one?
Yes.
It will be featured as prominent in my example. Okay, so what I need to do is to share my screen. You're going to have a little ghost effect for about a few seconds. And now I'm switching and to something. There you go. And you've seen the 9.0 video, I assume. So I'm not going to bore you. Yeah, so I'm not going to spend time on that. And I'm not going to spend time on this either. But here's the breadbasket.
Lacquered food container with handle, made of woven bamboo thread and coated with red, black, and green lacquer. 世紀デザインのビルマ漆塗り食品容器。ハンドル付きのビルマ漆塗りの食品。
Oh, that's my boiler. And I'll show you what I did with it in a second. I did a digital copy of it because I had problems and did instruction, and also I could have a meeting with people to explain what I should do about it. And then to the left there, I created the lesson of my internet security room. So that's the room, the real one, and the digital copy. So now I'm walking in, and you look at the real room, but what I cheat. I glued the digital one over the real one. And there's a purpose for that. There's a purpose by gluing them over each other that you'll see in a second, because once you have that, someone in Sweden can walk in that room and we can start talking with each other. They are in the digital room walking around with their phone, and I am in the physical room. So that makes it possible for, I'll give you an example, 150 colleges in US that cannot afford the physical labs can still enjoy the digital ones, okay? So let me there's a little
lacquered food container.
So just jump over that. And I think if you can mute yourself, just for, we don't have that echo. Okay, we got rid of that, so thank you. There's a little feedback on your side. Anyway, do you still see my screen? Do you see my screen?
No, I'm seeing your face now, not the screen.
Okay, let me just do that again. let's move on.
Sorry, Dan, I'm not hearing you. Sorry, not sure what's happened.
It's my bad. I forgot the button off. So yeah, today's one of these days, but we gotta go through it. Don't worry, we'll cut some of the portions here. Yeah. So what I was saying is, when I did the physical room, I overlaid them with a little distance, just so you see the discrepancies. You understand that there are two rooms, and then I have a mini version of that room, and that mini version has all the scanned objects inside. Okay, so and then you remember walk and talk. Now I'm walking and talking. I'm pointing out different things in a miniature version of the room, and then I scale it up so you can see the full room. So basically you can give me instruction from your location what to do by using this pointers. And then the last part I did is I invited friends from Sweden to join me in this room. So first we worked on a miniature version of the room, and then we scaled it up. And my CTO immediately, he went to my computer and started checking it out. I had it password protected, so it was no problem. Okay, and remember the control room. So what we did then... So today, I'm gonna scan this room. So you can see I start to scan up here. Hopefully I'll take a good minute. So I think we're ready to use this. So now what I'm doing, I have my scan and I start to add my information called artificial intelligence. I hold it around this environment, and then using integration with Google Lens, I can get the names. In annotation, you just put label, you put the name, so let's say cable, and then video. Anyway, once I've done that, I can overlay them, and I can do my tests, identify in reality, not in virtual anymore. So things pop up in my real world with... I'll help you to install standard. As you can see here, cable connections that you have to have in mind. One here, you have the blue one that goes in the second outlet, and the black one. Which of the components we're going to study today, so I can follow. And the last part is that I'm inviting 3 other people to my room, one in Sweden, one in a location in the United States, and they physically are in my room and can help me out to figure out what I should do. You with a camera. We started looking at the modem. We have the HMI optimal 5 cables right there. Okay, I see them now. More to the right, they have the HMI extender set. This is so cool. I see you. I see you now.
This is the blue cable here, HDMI device extender. You can see here, going into the device. Here you see the yellow fiber.
Here's pointing at the net here, fiber channel switch. 2, 3, 4, 5 cables up here. The last one is yellow one. Yeah, it looks correct. How does it feel to be in my room, although you are in Sweden, Linda?
It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I must admit, this is a very unusual experience. I think we are one of the first in the world that can do this with a phone. Just the phone and our software. We're able to recreate the room, interact, look under the cables, help each other out. I bet this will be very useful. I think it feels absolutely awesome. It feels like I'm in your room, but I'm actually on the other side of the planet. This is what we call... Okay, so but it doesn't stop. So my wife got very envious when she saw that. She said, can you do that with my orchids? And I did the same thing with her orchids. I created a scan, and you can see here that the same direction, how to water the plants, came in physically. Let's look at that. On the left side here, there'll be a small stone Bali statue. Later on, we're going to see the painter's palette. And to the right, something that looks very exotic. So that's that. And then, of course, the peace lily.
Side. Avoid hot or cold drafts. Ideally, keep the soil evenly moist, not wet. Hoe zorg je voor spathiphyllum plant? Spathiphyllum verzorgt.
And of course, support in many languages. And then because of the civic activities also, I went to the village and I was about to be stopped by these two police, but we created a replica of the statues, which took a couple of minutes. And this is a very beautiful statue setting because it talks about peace, freedom, fertility, harmony. It's almost like a roulette table. Safety and justice. So looking forward to experience this week. So that was a little roulette table there in here. But you don't get the lucky number, you get some type of virtue. And of course, you don't have to limit it to things you scan yourself. You can import any models. For example, this is a very beautiful model of a cathedral that we have in Spain. Or you can take, for hospitality business, you can take this terrace that I'm right now. It's to my left here. You can see it out there. In fact, that's my terrace. And you can start populating it with things to train hospitality, bartenders, what have you, just using a phone. And you can use this for, I mean, fantasy is stopping it. You can use it for almost anything, engineering, tourism, gardening, architecture, history, and it's so simple to do. So I'm pretty excited about this type of functionality. So both the merged XR, but also the spatial meetings. With that, I hope you still can hear me. I will stop the sharing the screen. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah. So your thoughts. What do you think?
Wow, that's mind-blowing, as they say, right? But in terms of, everything you went through, I was starting to think, well, how this would be so amazing, especially for our environment where our students are far-flung, where resources are limited, where we may have one excellent laboratory in Jamaica, but we don't have one in St. Kitts. But the students can get the same experience and level of learning as they would if they had traveled, 1,000 miles across the region. Or we could link with other universities that have have those labs and also do shared global classrooms. It really is an amazing possibilities, and not just possibilities, because these are realities now. So it's really just to get it done. And I think all educators would be excited about that for so many reasons. And when you showed me those last images of the statues of peace and justice and so on, many people don't think of technology in that way, but you mentioned it as an equalizer, but it is also more than an equalizer. It can also bring equity to the world, in the sense that, there's no reason that we need to have some countries or some people who don't have access to technology and therefore are behind and poor and so on. With this, you are bringing equity and justice beyond, what I think anyone imagined. So to think of the technology in education as being a part of our values of creating social justice, equity, access, this is what this kind of technology can do. And utilizing things that are not that expensive now, like cell phones. In the region, we have more than one smartphone per person, which means that everyone can learn something and really improve their lives and not be seen as a lesser developed country or a more developed country or a less well-known university. You mentioned the Harvard. We can have the same experience as a Harvard student using this and pairing it with, with a university that has the lab, or a university there that's interested in our hospitality industry and how we have progressed, or in our disaster and climate change modeling, which we are ahead of the world in, they can also pair with us. So my portfolios are both for distance learning and global engagements, and I see this as really making the world a much better place, if I can put it that way. Certainly for students and professors.
Really, it warms my heart, because you sit there and it's sweat, blood, and tears to get this technology to actually work, and then a little kid is, well, how will they respond to this? And when I hear your voice basically echoing what has been going through my mind, I mean, we never rehearsed this, so never heard you want to. So this is totally brand new, and you really point out the fundamental things that I think are important. Knowledge is a human right. That's my belief. That's what we based our company, and we want to make it available, accessible, and affordable for everybody. I believe in democratization of technology, and you're right. 4 billion people have this. If I go to Mongolia, and I've been to Papua New Guinea or in Ghana, they all have it, which means that having this and having technology such as the one I showed you now, and learning is available. But what I like about it, and by the way, before I forget, we are just launching a global competition, and as we speak, we have people in Rwanda that goes to the street market and captures lessons in that context, right? People in India post-pandemic that actually can go out and do the same. The Needle in Toronto, the Santa Monica Pier, you'll see that by next week. So we'll have these experiences coming from the whole world, which kind of unites people and also gives them some pride, right? To describe the local knowledge. And my goal initially is to work with yourselves, but then to extend it to citizen science, right? So imagine a piazza in Rome, and you have Pantheon there, and you have a gelateria to the right, and you sit there and you start bringing back things from the Roman era, or you tell a story, your version of the story based on the scan, right? Because you have a perception that is slightly different from someone else, and that creates a kaleidoscope of knowledge. And so the reason behind this, I'm so excited, is that unfortunately technology always can be used for good and for bad. I don't care if it's when we invented a more efficient way to throw things, probably that's not a good example, but definitely internet is a good example, right? The first usage was in the porn industry, which is and used for defense of offensive arms and other. It was the DARPA that invented it. And look at what is done today. It's used for science, for white papers, for sharing, for knowledge, for what you're doing. So same thing with our technology. And social media, for example, is the negative side of the coin. TikTok, meaningless things that leave you dissatisfied and frustrated, versus this side where I think we awaken curiosity. We have that. I mean, this inside most people, they have these two sides, right? We are all born curious. And if we can tickle that, if your school can address that, as well as prepare them for a good job, then I think we'll be satisfied. So anyway, I got carried away because of your statement. Going back to my question to you, and I really want to get this to you and your team. Hopefully in the next week or so, when I'm back from Korea, I'm going to Korea for the World Conference, and I would like to do pilots and get you to join this global, I would say, global competition. Okay. Now, life is not all positive things. Life is also a struggle. And I'm a little bit curious about yourself, a personal question, if you don't mind. I was reading your bio, and you are really working hard for women. And you yourself are a woman that has advanced very highly in a region that maybe historically, and I don't want to say so, is not known for that. Tell me a little bit about the challenges you face to reach that, and what you're doing to contribute to make it easier for other women around the globe and within your capacity to join leadership positions?
Yes, well, thanks for that question, Dan. Yes, our region is known for a matriarchal society, but in terms of women progressing to the top, the glass ceiling is still there, and it is not an easy path for most women. Generally, I would say within academia even, we have seen very few women rise to the very, very top of our university system. But it has a lot to do, I think, with persistence, with different styles of leadership. In my style of leadership is very much in terms of building other people. And in building other people, I found that I have been built up. and so I give the credit for my progress to the fact that I personally believe that you have to invest in people. And when you invest in people, then they see the value of you being their leader. So I do give others the credit. But yes, it does require a certain amount of resilience and a certain amount of, focus, and not focusing on the negative of people trying to hold you back, but rather focusing on where you want to go and how best to go there within your own authenticity. Because I wouldn't call myself a feminist. I call myself a womanist, in that I believe in the power of women, and the term feminism tends to bring a lot of loaded images for people, and people put up their backs. So my experience is one that allows me then to draw on it for other women, but also for men, because we have to recognize that all progress is progress for men and women. And so I feel that once we have an organization, an environment that is nurturing of people, that the inequity of the woman in that organization will be recognized by both the women and the men in leadership, because we have to have the men in leadership on board in bringing women up. And my own personal career has shown that it's those enlightened men who have believed in me and who would have allowed me to move into this level. And so, yes, in terms of the organization, I believe in creating an organization where people matter, where we really focus on people. I remember my own CIO was telling me that I focus more on people than systems, and that's important. That's what he liked, and I was blown away. But he's right that once your people are happy and productive and feel that they are valued, then any system works. And that's why we could jump into our Aeon system, even though everyone is overworked already. And in terms of moving young women up, yes, I mentor men, as you mentioned earlier. I'm part of Commonwealth of Learning's Wise Women Network. So I mentor women in Botswana, in Tanzania, in Guyana, as well as the women who work side by side with me. And that's important. I think once you get to this level, your major job is to make sure that there are other people that will take your place. So that's my philosophy.
It's wonderful to hear, and you also that you have this global perspective. Talking about global perspective and talking about the role of leadership, I was very honored to be invited for the fourth time to the Asian Leader Conference, and I'm leaving tomorrow actually. And there is an interesting topic, because it's the topic is the world after COVID-19, rebuilding trust and global cooperation. And there are some interesting mixture, because I feel a bit like a cat among hermelins, right? It's like, because I don't know exactly why. If you look here, they put me, we have people like, for example, Larry Summers, the former US Treasury, and we have the Vice President, and we have Prime Minister of Sweden, and then little me there is somehow squeezed in between. But what it's interesting that because when we prepped for this and I had a chance to discuss with the organizer, because every year it is slightly different. There seems to be among leaders a sense after the pandemic and after what's happened and after the former administration of the United States, which was, as you know, not always appreciated of everybody around the world, more of a sense of unity and a wish to kind of come together. And there are many questions to tackle and problems to tackle. I know our former prime minister, for example, in Sweden, will talk about populism in the era of COVID, right? So I want to ask you, in this context, your view, and if we talk specifically about your region, where you are active, what would you say, and in terms, maybe kind of focus a little around education, which is what's more for leaders, what do you think are the important perspective, or for ministers, or what will be your advice, if I may, so from your perspective, that we need to do in the post-pandemic era to build that trust and collaboration?
Yes, well, I think that for leaders, that the focus on the person is very important. We're moving into that era of man and machine. And I recently heard a lecture that spoke about the human economy in Industry 5.0. And I think that that's going to be a very important focus for leaders, that they have to focus on the human economy. The pandemic has left a lot, or is leaving in my region, a lot of negativity in the sense that we're seeing increase in crime, increase in domestic violence, increase in mental illnesses, particularly among young people. And we have to fix those things. We have to focus on those things and getting our people back into a mode of productivity and happiness. I may sound like, a little bit unrealistic, but my view is that that's what technology is supposed to do for you. It's supposed to help you to have a better life and to be happier and to contribute. And I think that leaders are often focused on the bottom line, the economy, the dollars and cents and so on. And we're going to have to do both now. We have to see how we balance that. How do we balance the social safety nets that have frayed during the pandemic, while focusing on getting our economies up and running? How can we, in our region, this is why I like this technology, really get back on our feet and leapfrog, move forward, as you'd said earlier, in terms of our economical development, instead of the traditional curve that we would have thought of going up. How can we use some of this technology to train up our people to bring the development right here in the region and not suffer from the brain drain, which is something educators in the region worry about. We train, brilliant people, and 60, sometimes 70% of them migrate within 3 years. So we're always on this because they don't find the opportunities here. And what we want is to create that spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship so that they can create those opportunities for this region. But if we don't focus on supporting our young people in this kind of learning, that's what governments have to do in this region. We have to stop seeing education as a cost, an expense, and rather as an investment, that this is what we need in order to make our region really grow. So focus on people, recognize that there are issues that the pandemic has caused that we have to fix globally, because I know that being locked away and not socializing for 18 months has caused a lot of difficulties. But my own leadership perspective, Dan, has always been that leadership is about others. It's about making other people satisfied, fulfilled, and happy. And out of that comes success for your organization, your city, your country, your world. And if we have an unhappy world, all that's going to happen is increased war, increased competition, increased exploitation. So leaders have to focus on how we are going to get our people to be in a place where they are happy, fulfilled, and are contributing to the growth of their families, their communities, their countries, and the world.
You know, there's so many, excited to listen to you because there's so many threads that pop in my mind based on your statements, which I fully agree with. But let's take a few. Let's take happiness, for example. One of the things that made me really happy when I was in Bhutan is that they value as a part of their GDP happiness as one element, right? They instituted that. I'm sure you're aware of that. And if you think about spinning a little bit on happiness, what makes people happy? I think fundamentally, yes, there's short pleasures that our capitalistic society has provided, like, you know, fast food or fast junk entertainment or social media TikTok that keeps you hooked, but very soon turns, after not too long time, in frustration, dissatisfaction, and polarization. And I would say a big problem we have in our society is this polarization. This is generated by technologies. That's the evil side of technology. But the other, the lasting happiness comes from a sense of purpose. And the sense of purpose comes from doing something that is meaningful for you and that generates pride. And an education is an important part of achieving that, right? So that's why it's so fundamental. And I would say it's for politicians that you can sell this in two ways, right? You can sell it, you have to do it because it's the right thing, or you have to do it, other ways you get the type of people you deserve. And we got our fair share of that in January 6th, right? Who would believe US would go to that? But that's what you get when you don't pay attention. So, and when I say pride, it doesn't have to be, you know, that you are a quantum physics working in CERN. It can be pride around a small business. It can be pride around organizing an entrepreneur. It could be pride to do what I'm doing most of the weekends, which is this. I'm okay. Can you hear me back again? Okay. So it can be pride about doing something with art, with culture, with your hands, right? And so I really much believe in that. And that's why we need to facilitate. We need to facilitate that sense of pride. And I was about to say that nobody starves because of, you know, there's not enough food. In fact, obesity has now become almost, and I hate to say this, but it's a way to see which social status you are. So the poorer you are, the more you tend to be big. So that's gone. Most people have somewhere to live, although that is scarce. So I think our duty is of society is to create that happiness. And I think devices like this and technology like ours can help you immensely to create that happiness, right? Can you hear me? Okay, I'll stop there. Your thoughts?
No, I agree with you that happiness, or my own mentor calls it joy, so that it isn't confused with the fleeting and transient happiness of a new car, or, you know, or even a new cell phone. But that inner joy is important, and you're right. It's that contribution, so that you know that you are making a difference to something, whatever it is that you're doing. So I agree with you there that is what people need, and that the technology needs to be used for the good in that way, so that people can see how the technology, which there's a lot of vilification of the technology, because the bad side of the technology is what a lot of the media focuses on, you know, the social media bullying and that sort of thing. But there are positive things of the technology, and educators must embrace that, because we have the opportunity to change that. Students spend most of their time with their teachers, especially in those middle years, and for us, we have to show them how this new world that we have entered, we have to really, forget about that old normal. So Dan, don't talk to me about a new normal. That terminology just sends me crazy. There is no such thing as a new normal, right? We are in a different world, and the world changed in January to March of 2020. And if we don't realize that as educators, then we're doing a disservice to our students, because our job as teachers from the time of Aristotle has always been to open the eyes of our students to possibilities, not to teach them only about the past. When you teach the past, it is to teach them about the possibilities of the future. So we have to be at the forefront of this. And if we're not, then we are not fulfilling our mission as educators. So we have to embrace this technology, see how it can really improve the lives of the people that we have in our hands to teach.
I fully agree, and I share your optimism in spite of acknowledging the hardship and difficulty and all the things you mentioned. That I've seen it here in California, that is a wealthy society, what the devastating impact this thing had. But you do have to focus on the possibility and the optimism. And I'm actually very optimistic about the future. There's always these two views. One where machines take over and we become useless, just vegetating, eating more hamburgers and going from 70% obesity to 99% obesity in US. I just read a report that our lifespan has dropped in US like a stone. There's a report came out today. We're living shorter because of this type of issues that we have. But I'm optimistic. And on that note, I would like to ask you the question. Let's fly a little bit. Let's relax. Let's think in a positive way. What will happen? What's the positive view of education in 10 years from now? So you and I, it's now 2031, and we meet somewhere in your region, and we have a look at your Open University campus. What will I see?
Well, first of all, we're going to meet on the beach, and I will be delivering the class, and I will be showing the students the results of climate change and beach erosion while I'm in my bathing suit, and I'm introducing them to you and your wife. But this is how I see the classroom. I see the classroom as not a room, but the world being the classroom with that mobility of access. And almost everyone can be a teacher. So I can be teaching a class. I just came back from the beach this weekend, and I was really shocked. I went to a beach that I hadn't been to for 25 years, and the beach was totally eroded. And that would be such an excellent, because I have photographs of it 20 years ago. And I could do a class like that and show the students and still be having a happy time to say, well, okay, here's the result and here's what's happened at this reef. And we would go diving and we would see what has happened to the reef, and we would see what has happened to uncontrolled developments on the coast and how it has blocked the currents. And so my image is that the world is the classroom, that students are learning skills that are immediately applied to them, immediately. So, that could be someone who is on another beach in Antigua, not Jamaica, and they're saying, okay, great. So that means we need to stop that construction that's going to do the same thing to our beach. So immediately applicable. I see excitement. Now I am so disappointed sometimes that students don't feel excited about learning. They just want the paper and they want to go get a job. They don't feel that excitement of knowledge. And I think that this is what technology like this that will immerse them in 30 years. I'm sure if you can do what you're doing now, they will probably be able to physically enter a digital space themselves. I don't know. I'm a real sci-fi person, and I've always believed that, if I had a super superpower it would be to be able to transport myself from one location to the next, sort of beam me up, Scotty. That's what I want. I've always wanted that, yeah.
I am a sci-fi fan, as you may imagine, being in this business. But by the way, our advisory board member, he got the Oscar for John Greta for Matrix. So he was the one inventing bullet time and all that. I had a very spacey discussion, similar webinars I did with you, but with him, we were almost in outer space with Elon Musk somewhere in the ether. Now, it's so, it makes me warm and fuzzy to listen to you. And one reason I say that is that, I'm actually this week, I'm flying to Korea on my birthday, and I become 59.
Oh.
So, I'm 59. So,
Happy birthday in advance.
By the way, the beach, when we do the beach scene, before I forget, so we'll do yoga first, because I see you're a yoga master, then we do lessons. So we combine the spirit, the body, and the mind. Yeah, but going back to the little birthday, so I'll have that on the aircraft, basically, birthday celebration with a glass of champagne. But the point is, when you come at that stage in your life, you realize that, okay, I maybe have 7,000 days, if I'm lucky and I keep in good shape, of productive time that I can contribute and leave this earth a little bit better than I came.
Yeah.
And for me, that's very important. It doesn't matter if it's making a painting or anything that I can contribute. So it doesn't have to be something big. It can be something in my community, right? So, so our goal as a company is to bring knowledge and help in that process a little bit. But we also realize that this is a global effort, right? So one little dream I have 10 years from now is that we, together with you, have created that global community. And thanks to your leadership, your vision, your knowledge, we actually tangibly show how other academic institutions can do it, and that it is not remarkable and it is effective. And we can actually awaken that curiosity that all of us have when we're born, right? If you remember, let me down when I was a couple of months, and I stick my fingers in the dirt, I put it in my mouth. I'm curious. We all are. But some of schools have constrained that, and sometimes you will kill that curiosity. So I think I love your vision on the beach, because that gets you in a contextual way. I just saw a study in South Africa recently that a lot of students quit university because they couldn't see any link between what they learned there and how they can apply it in the real world, right? So I think technology like this, where you actually are in the boiler room, right? You are learning in a very contextual way, and it immediately applicable. That was another thing I picked up on what you said. Listen, this is fantastic. We could have talked for another hours and then gone to the beach. Not possible yet, but I want to thank you so much for your contribution. And you're on for the global competition. I will make sure that you get that. And I'm very eager to see the contribution from your side. Any last, anything that I should have asked you that I didn't?
Well, maybe just to say, well, how is the university responding to this plunge that we've taken? And just to say, there's such excitement. I'm literally fighting off people. and that shows me that our educators really want to make a better life for their students, a better learning life for their students. So we're really excited. I think if we could move faster, we would, but all in good time, and our people are so committed to this project. And thank you, Dan, for your confidence in us and for the amazing developments that you're bringing to the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your time. All the best, and I'll take you on your invitation to come and visit.
Please do.
Take care.
Bye.